Hey guys, how's it going? So today I wanted to bring another tutorial. Today we're going to have a look at my new Chillout track, Like Nothing Felt Before. As usual, we're going to have a look at all the different elements in the song, and then also I'm going to show you how I mastered it. So I'm just going to play the sample and we'll get right to it. Alright, so the first section we're going to have a look at here is the drum and sub bass section, alone soloed out. They sound like this. Yeah, and that just repeats till the end of the song. So the first section we'll have a look at is the kick and the snap, and alone they sound like this. Yeah, and that just repeats all the way through the song. So on the group as a whole, I just have this glue compressor with the attack as quick as it can go, the release almost all the way up, and the ratio pushed all the way up. And basically all this is doing is ensuring that the kick and the snap have a pretty even volume level throughout the song. And yeah, that's all the processing on the group. This kick right here is a kick I use in a lot of my songs. Alone, it sounds like this. The only difference is that I went to the fade section and I moved this left fader, which kind of controls the attack of the kick, over to the right a little bit. The original sample is way too punchy, I felt, for this genre, so if I didn't have it on there, it would sound like this. And with the attack, or the fader moved, it sounds like this. And I just thought it fit better with the song. So yeah, the next sample we have here is this snap, and alone it sounds like this. And the only processing I have on it is this EQ, and that's literally it for the kick, or the snap. So the next and last sample in this section is this reversed clap. All I did was take a clap sample and click the reverse button here, and alone sounds like this. And all that's doing is just adding kind of this build up to each first snap hit, and the only thing I have on it is this EQ. So yeah, oh, and also it's delayed 30 milliseconds right here. And that's it for the drum, or the kick and snap section. The next section we have here is my hi-hats and my cymbal slash claps and everything. and alone they sound like this. Yeah, and again, that just repeats all the way through. So none of these samples really have a whole lot of processing on them. I mostly just did that in the group. All that I did was add these two sidechain compressors, one to the kick, one to the snap. Added this glue compressor, which does the same thing as the one on the kick and the snap. And then also added this EQ, cutting off the low and some of the mid frequencies. I also have this group going into a return channel, this reverb right here. I just threw a reverb on there, turned on the low cut, turned the dry wet all the way up, and boosted the decay time to 3.62 seconds. So yeah, the first sample I have in this section, all I did for this was literally go into all the drum samples that I have and pick out different hi-hats and chose which ones fit best. The first sample sounds like this. And I just went into the mixer and I also changed the track panning to kind of add some movement to everything, to all these different hi-hats, so it wasn't just this straight line of different hi-hats. So yeah, that's it for the first hi-hat. This second one is panned to the right, and it sounds like this. Yeah, and that just repeats all the way through. Again, just every few of these I have it panned to the right. And then this one here, all I did was go into the sample and turn the volume right here down to negative 15.6 decibels. Alright, so the next sample sounds like this. And that just goes all the way through, and it's panning both to the left and the right, and staying in the center. Again, just adding some movement to the track. The last hi-hat sample I have here is this one, and it's just a reversed hi-hat. Again, just go into the sample, click reverse. Sounds like this. Yeah, and that's just how I did those weird hi-hats. Alright, so the next sample I have here is a wind-up toy that I recorded in Target with my iPhone, and alone sounds like this. And like this. Yeah, pro tip, I mean, if you're ever needing a microphone to just record some random samples, not really vocals or anything, just use your iPhone. It's what I use for a lot of different recording for my weird ambient samples. Yeah, kind of pro tip, I guess. So the next sound I have here is a snare that I just consolidated, repeated 4 times. If you don't know how to consolidate, all you do is highlight tracks, right click on them, and click consolidate. And it makes it into one audio track. And alone, this one sounds like this. Basically all I did was once I consolidated it, I went into the envelope tab, went to transposition, boosted this one to 9.25 semitones, and then brought it back down to 0. And also something that is a cool little trick, right here, usually this little section right here looks like this, and this can actually control the transients, I think, in the sample, because normally it would sound like this if it was at its normal settings. But what I did is I moved or changed it to this arrow, which basically means it's going forward, I'm guessing. Not exactly familiar with how to describe what it does. But then I also turned down this knob right here to about 30, and it shortens the snare sound, so it sounds like this. Yeah, so that's just another cool little trick. And I also did it on the last sample here on this clap, which sounds like this. Yeah, so that's it for my drum section. The last thing I have here is my sub bass, and on the processing I just have this EQ, jeez, get out of here. I just have this EQ cutting off both the low and most of the high ends, so I just get the crispy bass tone. I also have this utility which puts the width down to 0 to make sure the sub bass is mono, doesn't have any stereo width. And then I have my two sidechain compressors, one going to the kick and one going to the snap again, and then also a little bit of a glue compressor. The sample or the patch itself is just a sine wave, and on the amp knob right here I put an LFO on it, which is this triangle wave. So if I didn't have that on there, it would sound like this. But since I did, it adds a little bit of movement and sounds like this. I just thought that was a cool little effect to add to the sub bass. And then also right here, since I wanted to keep the movement of the bass on tempo, I just went into the volume or the level fader right here and put it at 0 at the beginning of each hit of the sub, so it wouldn't interfere with the kick very much. So yeah, that's it for the drum and sub bass section. Alright, so the next section I wanted to show you guys was the instruments and the effects. I'm also going to go a little bit more in depth on how I made the vocal chop for this drop. So alone, it all sounds like this. Alright, so first we're going to have a look at the group as a whole. On the instruments, I have an EQ and two sidechain compressors. The EQ is just cutting off the low end, and then also this glue compressor, again to make sure everything sounds relatively even. The first instrument I used was this guitar. I'm going to unfreeze it so we can have a look at it. And alone it sounds like this. So this is just a contact instrument. It's the jazz guitar. I'm going to turn off all these effects first so you know what it sounds like clean. You just go into your instruments, go to the band section, guitar, and jazz guitar right here. Then alone, without any effects, it'll sound like this. As you can see, it's not very powerful at all. So I added this amp, and you just go to your audio effects, go to amp, and then it's the clean one right here. And I turn down the dry wet a little bit. It makes it sound a whole lot better, and it sounds like this. Then I also added a utility to increase the stereo width a little bit, a reverb, which sounds like this. A ping pong delay, and sounds like this. All just to make it a little more ambient. Then I also have this compressor, making sure each strum is about the same level. And then lastly, my EQ, cutting off the low end. And you can also have a look here at the MIDI notes for them. It's nothing really crazy or special, but here they are. So yeah, the next sound I have here is just this guitar stop sound, and it sounds like this. And all I did, and the whole reason I used this, was to make the guitar sound a little more real, like I actually was playing it and recording it, even though I have no possible way of doing that. So I just sampled this guitar, or I duplicated it, froze it, flattened it, and at the very end of the strum you can hear it go like this. And I just put that at every final strum. And all I have on it for effects are a utility increasing the volume and an EQ cutting off the low end. So the next instrument or sound I have here is just an old record popping kind of sound, and it sounds like this. Yeah, and just EQ'd it. Nothing crazy, just adds a little more filler to the entire sound, or the entire drop. The next sound I have here is the pluck that you hear. It sounds like this. And this is just a massive patch. It's just a sine wave. And then in the fourth envelope here, I took down the level all the way, took the attack all the way to the left, and then decreased the decay a little bit, just below halfway. Then I also added this reverb with a large size and turned down the dry wet a little bit. Then I have a ping pong delay, a compressor, and an EQ cutting off the low end and a little bit of the high end. And this compressor also just makes sure that each pluck is about the same impact level, because some hit a little harder the higher or lower you go. So yeah, the next sound I have here is this echoey voice thing. And all I did for that was I went to some random sample pack, found a breath kind of sample, and added a ton of reverb to it and froze and flattened it down. And then reversed it and then kept the other one. That's literally how I made that sound. It was pretty simple. Then I got this next sound from freesound.org. It's just outside ambience, and it sounds like this. And yeah, again, just adds more subtlety to the drop. So now we're at the vocal chop. The first layer of it sounds like this. And these are actually from a few different vocal samples. The main one, though, is from a Light song from a while ago called Toes, and the vocal itself sounds like this.
If you are a cliffhanger.
Like, yeah. And all I did for it was find random little segments and chop them up and pitch them around. So like the first hit, or the first chop right here, is made from a combination of these two.
You are
And
and
so when I delete those out, it sounds like this. I actually have it right over here.
you
And that's how I got that one. And then the second part right here is just another section right here where she says like you or something, and then I just pitched these to different places to make sure they sounded nice. And then I forget which part this vocal chop comes from. But yeah, that's basically how I did the vocal chops for it. And on the effects of the actual vocal chop, I have a ping pong delay, a reverb, a auto filter, or an auto filter, grammar, an EQ that is cutting off low end and then boosting the high end a lot, and a compressor. So yeah, the next part of the vocal I have here is just the same beginning part, just pitched up 12 semitones, and it sounds like this. And with all the same effects and everything on it. Then the next layer of it is the entire vocal dry, but pitched down 12 semitones. Sounds like this. And then EQ'd, of course, to take out the low end. Then the last vocal chop thing right here, I just took the very first one with all this reverb, froze, flattened, and reversed that big long reverb tail so it sounds like this. And it just gives like a nice little build up to the whole drop. Okay, so the next sound I have here is a piano, and it just sounds like this. And I just have an auto pan, a compressor that's compressing quite a bit, and then an EQ taking off the low and the mids. And this is just the stock grand piano. So you go into band, acoustic pianos, grand piano right here, and then I turn the reverb all the way up to give it this big ambient feel. Alright, and the last the last section I have here is just two white noise samples. Both are just made in massive, they're the same patch. Have a side chain again, and all there is to it is turned off all the oscillators, kept the noise on, turned it to bright noise, and moved the color all the way up and down, depending on if I wanted to build up or fall down. And then I went into this LFO, changed it to Performer, took this curve right here, you can load curves right here, made it go 4 over, then just had it repeat like that, and just added that to the amp envelope, and that's how I made this. So yeah, that's it for the instruments and the effects. Alright, so the last section I'm going to show you is the mastering chain on this. So without any mastering, the song sounds like this. Alright, so I'm going to start from the very beginning. I just keep this spectrum on here just to check levels and everything. That's not really important. So the first effect I have on my mastering chain is this saturator. I'm going to turn off all these as well, so we can just go one by one. Alright, so I just have a saturator on here. It just adds a little more warmth to the song, kind of boosts a little bit of the high. I turned the bass all the way down on it so it didn't distort any of the lower frequencies, so it sounds like this. And then I also turned the soft clip on. That's all that is. Then I have this EQ here. All this is doing is cutting off the low and a bit of the high frequencies. It's not a very audible difference, that's the whole reason I did it. It sounds like this. Yeah, not a huge difference at all. Then I have this utility, just adding a bit more stereo width. Again, not a huge difference. Mastering should never be this big complex thing, I feel. You can do it with minimal amounts of plugins. I mean, I'm doing this all with stock plugins from Ableton. And alone, it sounds like this. Yeah, so not a crazy huge difference. Now here's where we start to get kind of some changes in loudness, which is what people think of when they think of mastering. So I got this glue compressor, turned the soft clip on, took the attack down a little bit, boosted the release all the way up, and kept the ratio at about 4. I took the threshold down and then also turned up the makeup gain, and this adds a lot of loudness to it, so it sounds more like this. Yeah, and that's all that's doing. Then I have this second EQ here, which is taking out some of the muddier frequencies and also again cutting off the low and high end just because. So I just dragged these points up a little bit and found where kind of the frequencies are starting to get a little muddy and took them out a little bit. I never add anything on my EQ for my mastering. It's just not something I like to do. I feel like I should only take out things that are making it all sound worse. And it sounds like this. Kinda cleans everything up a little bit. Then lastly, I have these two limiters that are both just doing the same job, just taking out boosting the loudness. And the look ahead is at 1.5 milliseconds, and this is just where all the loudness comes from. And the reason I added 2 was because I never want more than 6 decibels of gain reduction, because then it really starts to distort, and I just wanted to push it just a little farther to get kind of that industry level loudness between -8 and -6 RMS. And so yeah, so that's basically my mastering chain. And then I have this little plugin right here that just kind of measures the RMS levels. So you can see right here. We're pushing just over -8, which is what I wanted. And you never really want to set a goal with your mastering to be as loud as possible. You just want to push it as much as you think it'll keep everything that you want and make it sound good. And that's luckily industry standard loudness, at least for EDM. And I don't think it distorted anything a whole lot. I think it still sounds nice. The mix sounds decent. So yeah, that is how I master my track. Hey guys, thanks for watching, and thanks for 100 subs. I know it's not the biggest sub number in the world, but it's still progress, and it was still a milestone that I was hoping to hit soon. So just want to thank everyone for doing that. I hope you enjoyed the video. There should be more coming out soon, later this month. More music, more tutorials, more everything. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a good one.